Hey everyone, this is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life and Prime Lunchtime with City Manager Brian Johnson. I just want to be able to thank our sponsor, Prototype Prime, and we're just going to run a short message before the show.
With over 12,500 feet of open, collaborative workspaces, a design and development lab with 3D printers, and a podcast studio, Peachtree Corners Tech Incubator, Prototype Prime, offers hardware and software technology startups a place to grow. Funded by the City of Peachtree Corners, Prototype Prime's mission is to provide early-stage startup teams with the support they need to launch and scale. Start up your passion at Prototype Prime. Visit prototypeprime.com or at Prototype Prime on social media.
Hey everyone, this is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life, along with several other podcasts we do on a monthly basis, like this one. This one is Peachtree. This is Prime Lunchtime with City Manager Brian Johnson. Thanks, Brian.
No, thanks for having me.
This is one of several podcasts we do a month, and we haven't done this month. We haven't done this one last month, so this is a bit of a catch-up a little bit. So to discuss a bit more about what's going on in the city that we haven't really talked about. So we're going to hit on a few questions. And since we have about 6-7 weeks worth of stuff that we haven't really discussed. But so I'm glad to have you here. I do want to say that I want to say thank you to Prototype Prime, the Peachtree Corners incubator, for allowing us to use their podcast studio. They're about 12,000 square feet of facility for startups that deal with high-tech hardware startup companies. They have a 3D printing studio here with several 3D printers, event space, obviously open workspace, and a variety of things that are happening here. In fact, this whole building is expanded into, especially...
Yeah, so we're now at 25,000 square feet, not 12.5, yep.
So, and on top of that, tell us a little bit about Georgia Tech and what they're going to be doing upstairs.
Well, yeah, we have two partnerships with Georgia Tech. One is through their incubator, ATDC.
Right.
And so we've had that since our inception. But the other one is we have partnered with their professional education department, and so we are offering a coding boot camp in January.
That's exciting.
Taught by 28th? Georgia Tech instructors. That's correct. And that the purpose of that is for those who are interested in either getting into that field, or they're interested in changing from what they're currently or do as far as a job and transitioning into coding.
Right.
As expanding an industry as that is right now with the technology out there and the ability to understand how to write code, there is going to be a boot camp here, and at the end of that you will have an official certificate from Georgia Tech.
And that's going to be
coding.
A 24-week boot camp.
Believe so, yes.
Yeah, so that's exciting. So it's not continuing education; it's actually helping a career path, like you said, moving either from one career into another.
Or enhancing if you're kind of in that world and you want to get more. So, yeah, I think it was like 2 evenings a week and then a full day Saturday or something like that. So, yeah. But it's on our website. It's on Prototype Prime's website.
Right, so prototypeprime.org to go to find out about that. That starts January 28th is when the first class starts. So if you're interested in that, that's the place to go. There's just a lot of things happening in the city. I want to stick a little bit with the high-tech stuff.
Okay.
Autonomous vehicles. What's going on with with that? Anything new yet?
Well, sure. There's been there's continues to be a lot of activity. A lot of it's behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So the design of the track is currently underway with our consulting engineers. We have, based on our research into the field, we have slightly revised the track, or I don't know, maybe not slightly, maybe we have significantly revised the track. When we first started this, we thought that we would have one lane.
Right.
And that lane, which would be dedicated to some advanced vehicle research and development testing, but it would be on one side of the road, and whoever was using it would just go up and back in the same lane, a bi-directional lane.
That. And there were several driveways in the way and stuff. Yeah,
every parking lot entrance on that side of the road, or every
crosswalk,
correct crosswalk, or even we have a couple of city streets that connect at an intersection. The track would, of course, have to cross it, and these vehicle testing, which is actually part of the allure of the track, would interact with human-driven automobiles, and that kind of environment, which is, it's not a closed, sterile, isolated environment, which there do exist out there, ones for that. It's not that. It's not the other side of the spectrum that's extremely complicated with ultimately wanting to have autonomous or driver-assisted vehicles interacting with human-driven automobiles in the same lanes and all that kind of stuff. Not that complicated.
Okay.
It's in the middle, where there is some interaction, but it's not at a high rate of speed. It's not in the same lane. It's perpendicular to each other. So we started with that. What we found is the companies that are expressing interest in wanting to use it when it's constructed started advising us that not everybody that tests in this environment are testing on vehicles that basically have two fronts. So they were saying the bidirectional lane could be limiting in that regard. That's one.
Right.
And then the other thing is the data produced by some of the testing out here could be as valuable as the testing itself. So, for instance, if you had some data of interactions between, say, a fully autonomous vehicle and a human-driven automobile coming out of a parking lot or something like that, and the interaction and the data produced by how long that artificial intelligence took to do certain things, or a pedestrian or whatever, that data has some value to others in the market who are doing certain testing. So that could actually
almost be sold, that data.
Absolutely. So what we found was a bidirectional lane would be limiting in and of itself, because some of the data would be, call it useless or corrupted. And by that I mean, let's say you were turning out of a parking lot in which this bidirectional lane was on that side of the road, and you wanted to turn right. Now, normally when we want to turn right, all we do is really need to look in one direction. You look left to make sure you're not turning in front of somebody, and then you assume that if you're making a right-hand turn, there's nobody coming from...
Never assume, but yes, I get that.
Yeah, maybe shouldn't, but we assume that there's not a car going the wrong way down a road.
Or a pedestrian crossing.
Or a pedestrian. But if our lane was bidirectional, that means that there are instances where the vehicle would be going against the natural flow of traffic. So you could be looking left, and then you assume you go, and then you turn, and then there could be a vehicle coming right at you, and that is not only dangerous in some capacities, although you could sign it and get humans to be aware that there could be a vehicle coming that way, but the data of that interaction is useless because in the real world you don't have that. Right. And so
that's interesting. So that's something that no one thought about until you started talking to companies that are doing this business right now. I wouldn't have thought about that coming back that way, how that would be.
We certainly didn't either.
Yeah.
So we had our engineers look, and we have enough space between face of curb to face of curb to add a lane.
So
now it's going to be on both sides of the road.
So that car or the vehicle comes around and it's going to make a U-turn, sort of.
Well, it won't make a U-turn. What we will do is at the end, the two ends of the track. So now it'll be on the two outside lanes, and on the two inside lanes will be the human-driven automobiles.
Right.
When it gets to the end, we will have to construct a a facility that allows a car to get off the road enough to turn back and square itself up into the roadway. Mm-hmm. And then it can then look to safely merge back in to make a left-hand turn.
Huh. Okay.
And so you'll have to do that. Now, the one on the southern end is pretty easy because there are two hotels that would absolutely love to have the vehicle pull into their parking lot,
come around,
and then come around and come out.
Sure.
To the point where they both were like, "Can you make sure that it comes into our
lobby way?"
Yeah,
almost,
the carport. Yeah. Because
is that doable?
Oh, it is, absolutely. Okay. And of course, there are things that you do to sign it and stripe it to set this aside. So when you come into this corridor, I will tell you that it is going to be signed and striped and painted in a way that you really feel like you're in an interesting environment.
Okay.
So your senses are a little bit, yes,
okay.
Because we're going to have gateway signage talking about you're now entering the Peachtree Corners Intelligent Mobility Corridor. The colors of the signs will be different.
Okay.
And I don't know, for those who may have been to say like Disney World.
That was coming to mind just now.
And I'm a big Disney fan.
Yeah, so
was as a kid. My kids, are. So when we go there a decent amount, and they've really done well that when you enter Disney property, and this is really only applies to Walt Disney World, because the other ones like Disneyland are close.
It's an older,
and there's development right up against it.
Sure.
When you go to Walt Disney World and you enter their property, everything's different.
Yeah.
The signage is different. The road, it tends to be cleaner and all that. But you feel like, I'm in a unique place.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to, for a number of reasons, least of which is safety. We want people's senses to be a little bit more on alert. And so we'll have the vehicle testing lanes to be painted a different color. That'll be behind the flexible bollards. The signs will be a different color, all that kind of stuff. But that'll still apply to like the parking lots or the parking lot lanes of a hotel that it'll be used to.
Okay.
So, we're going to do that. And of course, their interest on the southern end is the fact that the corridor itself is really half of what will ultimately in phase 2 be the total true transportation-oriented corridor of the 1,000-plus hotel rooms down at the southern end of this to the town center forum at the north end. So phase 2 would be to expand it a little bit farther to the north and link that up. So now you could have people staying in the city that could get on a autonomous vehicle shuttle and go back and forth between those two things, ever have to get on, especially 141, Peachtree Parkway. We don't want to get them on.
But so what are you going to do on the southern end until that expansion happens? Because that's going to be a ways down.
Well, the southern end, it'll still pull into the parking lot and do and everything. It's just that it won't serve necessarily. The testing won't serve a transit purpose until we get it linked up to. And so on the north end...
Any idea when that might happen? Is that like 2 years out? Or?
Well, I don't know. It's going to be a year or two. Okay. Just because, if nothing else, money.
Right.
We're doing this out of...
FLOSS, isn't it?
Some of it. Some of it. Like the resurfacing of Peachtree Parkway.
Right.
Because some of what we're doing... We're merely moving up the resurfacing, remilling and resurfacing a couple years earlier than we normally would have, but we would have still had to have done it. So that's part of the way that it was a little bit easier for us to make this jump is, well, some of this we got to do anyway. So it's not a futile.
Right. So the budget was there and you're just moving it up a little bit.
And so, but, we're doing this without going into any debt. So we are cash flowing it, so to speak. So we can only move as fast as our current cash flow allows versus us dropping some big bond and then doing it all at once, which but then you have to pay back. Or we don't
do you have any companies yet, like sort of committed, dollar-wise?
We do. I am really close. I am pretty sure the next time we do this, I'm going to be able to announce a number of partnerships that are pretty exciting.
Are these funding partnerships? Will they pay? They will pay for use of it, or how will that work?
Yes, in some cases there will be some payment. Initially, a lot of these partnerships payment is in the form of some sort of an infrastructure upgrade.
Okay, reasonable.
So in response to them doing this, we're going to let them use it for a period of time, or for so many this, or for a certain purpose.
Okay.
And so yes, I'm pretty sure I'll at least be able to do 2 of them, because we've been so close. I've had to sign non-disclosure agreements.
Okay.
And we've started to trade
really?
Language between attorneys. So it's usually
exciting.
pretty serious, when you get there. So, another one, there are 2 other things that are kind of exciting about this. And remember, right now, the main purpose in phase 1 is economic development. That's the initial purpose. It's not transit. We're not moving. There's not a need to move people within Tech Park necessarily. It started out as us looking at doing anything we can, even little small things, to try to alleviate congestion on Peachtree Parkway, especially.
Right.
And, of course, one of the things Mayor and Council were looking at is there any need within the city of moving people around, but we can keep them off of that road. And so the hotels in the town center are a really good one, because that's a lot of hotel rooms that are really busy during the week here, especially. We have no vacancy during the week in our hotels. Our weekends are where our vacancy comes from, but we are very much...
It's not a tourism place, really, so...
We have a lot of business travel, and there's a lot of people who are like, wow, if I could go there and I don't have to, either rent a car or Uber or taxi, I can do that. And, that's great. So we have to remember that. But this economic development component to it is really for the purposes of us increasing the occupancy, or even changing to a higher user of some of the buildings within Tech Park. So what is Prototype Prime. We now have an accelerator, a vertical that's been created within Prototype Prime, specifically looking to start up companies within the advanced vehicle ecosystem.
Oh, wow. That's exciting, too. Huh?
And so, both of those, so the purpose of that, but because of what we're doing, and remember, this is even more, I guess, exciting, given that construction's not going to start till January. We've had 2 significant things come from just the fact that we're going to do this. One is the Metro Atlanta Chamber had heard about this, what we're doing here, in addition to some of the other things that we're doing, the Innovation Hub Master Plan and other things we're doing at Town Center. We became the 3rd city that they have invited, my understanding ever, to be part of their delegation going to the Smart City World Expo.
Really?
In Barcelona, Spain next month.
Oh, my God.
And City of Atlanta and the City of Alpharetta are the first 2, which are probably the first 2 that when you think tech-oriented cities in Metro Atlanta, those are 2 that are doing a lot. They were the first 2, and we were the 3rd. That they invited to be part of that delegation.
That's a big deal in this metro area.
It is. And so, they saw some of the stuff we're doing. They're like, look, we'd like for you to be part of our team going over there. And so that's pretty exciting. So we're sending delegates over there. And then a couple of weeks ago, what we're doing became known by some people who are in the advanced vehicles, specifically or more oriented towards the power plants and electric vehicles and that kind of thing. And there was a big summit on advanced vehicle stuff, technology and how to deploy it and speed up the R&D at Purdue University that I was invited to go speak to. Because, they're talking about trying to find places to maybe test out. A good example would be in the electric vehicle arena. Charging of vehicles is the limiting factor right now. Right. And there is some...
It could take, 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how it's charged, I think.
That's correct. So if you charge it really fast, it's not good for the battery. And you bleed the charge off faster. And if it's a good kind of like slow charge, or you really get it in, it just takes a lot longer.
Right.
And so they're these electrical engineers and chemists and all that kind of stuff are all doing that. But one of the things they're looking at is putting coils in the ground.
Yes.
And then having the vehicles be charging themselves as they drive over a roadway.
That's what they're doing in China. There's a stretch of road like that, to a degree. Same type of thing as charging as you're driving.
Well, there's a stretch of road in Georgia that's doing it.
Really? Oh, yes, I heard about that one too.
There is a section of I-85 between LaGrange and the Alabama state line that has been given a nonprofit called The Ray, which is a nonprofit named after a man named Ray Anderson, who donated a bunch of money to start it. This nonprofit was given operational control of this section of interstate to create opportunities for testing. They are currently testing solar panels that are part of the drive surface. So instead of you driving over top of asphalt or concrete, you're actually driving over top of solar panels.
Oh, wow.
And the solar panels are, of course, generating electricity, in which then they're going to try to store it and then potentially put it back into cars that are,
driving
almost
above it. Okay.
And so there's talk. They were interested in whether we would be interested in doing some of that, these kind of things here. And, at this point, we're, of course, like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything that works, we're wanting to create this transportation lab. Advanced vehicle laboratory, and so whatever you want to do and come out and test, bring it.
So if someone does any major infrastructure adjustments or something and it doesn't work, the experiment's over, well, what happens then? Does it get taken off?
Well, I don't know if any of these things are ones that inhibit the ability of vehicles to move from point A to point B.
Right.
Like these solar panels, which are literally panels that have adhesive, and they're somewhat flexible, actually, and then they just adhered it to the top of the roadway.
That's all that is.
That's all that was. And so if it wasn't being used, it's still, you can drive over it all day. Or if we actually put in any kind of coil underneath, or embedded in the pavement, in which case we may actually do it in sections where you actually mold it elsewhere and then you drop it into a pre-cut, like like a slab, and you drop it in.
That's almost like the floor warmers in a bathroom. They have pre-cut ones, and you just drop.
And so if we stopped using it or weren't using it for a while, it won't inhibit our ability to use the road. It's just it's not turned on.
Right. Okay.
You'd never actually what they're looking at right now. You don't even know there's a coil in the ground.
So great stuff.
That's exciting. The sky's the limit here. When you really think about, we've had drone R&D that we've been talked about. Would you allow drone, stuff? Talking about maybe using it to practice package delivery in here or food delivery. Just a lot of people who are like, we're interested. So,
the good part is, it almost sounds like the city's becoming a tech company in a way, but the good part of it is running through this, you've been exposed to different ways of doing this because of the people that you're approaching, the companies. So it's evolved to a good part.
It has. And, remember, when we get this to a certain point, when we've got this corridor with the proper infrastructure in it to encourage and facilitate testing, research, and development. At that point, the city is just kind of, because we're not wanting to, test in it. We're not going to be in this arena where we're testing technology. We're just wanting to create this place where people want to come to, be close to, move right next to. And then all the, activity begets activity.
Oh, yeah.
And now you've got a symbiotic relationship with all these companies. And one day maybe we could have our tech park could have a theme like you see sometimes elsewhere. Like I know Research Triangle up in North Carolina has some technology parks that are biomedical specific. So all of the companies in there are, a niche. And maybe this one is the intelligent mobility.
Like almost like Planet. What is it? Michigan has Planet M or something. I think
that's
which
correct.
Is the mobile.
And it is now. Of course, theirs is an isolated, closed, sanitized place where it's just. But yes, here we, So
I like the idea that it's almost Disney-esque.
Yes.
Technology of tomorrow, the city of tomorrow, that whole idea, the place that you can enter and their senses will be up because it's different and things are happening here. Maybe there's an energy. It takes time.
It does.
Right? It'll evolve. So moving from a little bit from technology, which is always exciting to me, to some more mundane
lower
things.
Tech.
Yes, lower tech. But before we actually get there, there's a 2040 comprehensive plan that got passed. Mm-hmm. So was there any change, any major changes to it?
So what you're referring to a state requirement for municipalities to have a comprehensive plan that is planned out for no less than 10 years. And they can go as long as 50 years out. So it's kind of a future plan. And then you have to, every 10 years, the city has to redo the whole thing. And every 5 years, it has to update it. So we were in the update part. We're just finishing it because we turned 5 last year.
So any new things?
Yeah, so it's just an update. So it wasn't not a lot. There were some more. So there was some enhanced sections about pedestrian safety and walkability because we've kind of really committed, to that. So that was kind of beefed up. Some of the park amenities were beefed up. Since remember, the first time this was done was really just after the city was created.
Right. Yeah.
So since then, there were some park upgrades or really even creation. Simpsonwood was acquired and is now officially a public park, even though it's a passive.
Right, and that's Gwinnett County public park.
It is, but it's still within our corporate limits. It still has to be part of our master plan because there are certain things that we can do or really should do to support it, zoning around it or transportation improvements near it. Or in that case, we contributed money for the purchase of it from
originally.
Right. So
anything special going on in the parks that the city will be doing or nothing?
No, not really. No, we have had conversation with Gwinnett County Parks and Rec, and we do have reason to believe that at some point this will happen. Jones Bridge Park, according to Gwinnett County, is the only remaining public park within the county's system that has not actually been master planned. It's not actually had a specific group getting together to talk about its use and all that kind of stuff. And so we'd like to see that happen because there are some things that it offers that may not necessarily be in keeping with the unique nature of that park, which the unique part is two things. One, it's got waterfront, on the Chattahoochee, including, improvements made to get into the Chattahoochee. And two, it's got rapids. It does have some, you're not like Nantahala, Snake River Rapids, but it has some rapids, and so it offers a little bit more of a unique visual
for sure
of the Chattahoochee than elsewhere, where it's just kind of a steady stream, and then you've got the National Wildlife Refuge right across the river from it, with connectivity.
So we talked about maybe so maybe another bridge, pedestrian bridge, I guess, crossing it, or
yes,
not
definitely
not a
vehicular one. No, it would be a pedestrian one,
and wouldn't change the use really of the. There's a big lawn there right now that's being used by quite a few people. It's a great place to be on a weekend.
It is. I think probably the big conversation there would be to discuss if the park as a whole shares the common goal or a common purpose. Because a lot of parks have a overarching purpose, like Pinckneyville Park. Its overarching purpose is youth organized activities, ball fields and,
sports
that kind
complex.
Of stuff. Yes,
sure.
Sports complex. But it's a park. It just has purpose. Then you have some, like right now, Simpsonwood, which is an unimproved, completely passive park.
Right. Now, that still has buildings, or did they raise?
All those are gone.
All those are gone. Okay.
Just a road truck. And then that Jones Bridge Park, though, is a combination of both. It's a passive park with some improvements, but it also has an organized youth activity component at the far end of it when you
the
enter.
soccer fields you're talking about.
So sometimes those are not always in agreement with each other.
Because you have the Good Age building, which is I think part of the park system, and it's an old building, I think.
Yep.
So maybe that could be part of an improvement.
Right, but there has never been a talk about what's the purpose of Jonesbridge Park, and is everything here leading to that overarching purpose? And so we'd like to think, and including, like you said, the pedestrian, crossing opportunity there potentially.
Yeah, that would be great to be able to get on the other side. I mean, good. I mean, so that would be a committee made up of citizens.
Oh yeah, that would be definitely a lot of community involvement there. So and we have some big neighborhoods that are right up against Jonesbridge Park and an elementary school. So, there's a lot of stakeholders, but, that would be a good one. But there's some aspect of that in the comp plan. The Innovation Hub Master Plan and some of the things that we're doing within Tech Park are another component that was just kind of updated.
Right. The Entertainment District, is
Entertainment
that part of that?
District, yes. So, these are things that we had to update this plan from what it looked like 5 years ago, which is, like you said, didn't have Simpson Wood hadn't been purchased.
No.
The town center hadn't begun development.
Right.
We hadn't come up with our game plan on how to make Technology Park kind of, become a little bit more reimagined.
And all the stuff with Holcomb Bridge Road and the overlay on that part.
Correct.
And stuff. Roundabout. That's finally going to be happening at Peachtree Corner Circle and Medlock Bridge Road.
Correct.
Now, there were 3 versions that I saw that Pond, I guess, proposed. Was it Pond?
I think originally it was.
So it was three. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the difference is between the 3. I think number 2 is what they recommended out of the plan. Do you know what's moving ahead there? How it's going to, not specifically what plan, I guess, but how that's going to be envisioned? What's going to happen there besides it's going to be a roundabout center part, but people are trying to envision, some people are saying, it's going to slow down traffic. Listen, you have to know how to get on a roundabout. So maybe we need to do a 30-minute,
It is amazing how many, fly-by-night traffic engineers materialize when you throw out a roundabout, and how people are like, oh, it will or it won't, do this and that. And you're like, wasn't aware that we had so many traffic engineers.
It actually works reasonably well if everyone knows how to use it, I think. But
yeah, well, I mean, so as far as the design, the concept is technically, instead of, you got a T intersection.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you've got a couple of options as it relates to how you merge traffic between this T intersection. You could do a 3-way stop.
Right.
You could put a traffic signal in there. Mm-hmm. You could have it the way it is right now, which is it's just the Peachtree Corners Circle traffic it's on them to try to figure out a way to merge onto, or you could do a roundabout. Mm-hmm. And the roundabout decision was made by the city a number of years ago now. And, there's a lot of things that they took into consideration, but I think the constant flow of traffic was, to a degree, what, was a driving factor. And that is, on a roundabout, technically nobody should come to a complete stop. And yes, if somebody's never been on a roundabout, then could be a little bit of learning on, but of course we all were there where, the first time we were ever, a driver and you entered into a 4-way stop. Who goes first? I mean, there
that gets a little complicated too for most drivers.
I mean, so, you just have to, learn and adhere to rule. And so as far as the versions, it's not quite as simple as just dropping a circle there and then they merge, because you do have a single lane. Let's see, you have 2 lanes off of Peachtree Corners Circle that are merging onto the roundabout, but only 1 lane on Medlock Bridge at that location merging. Right. So you have 2 and 1. Right. That does tweak some striping and everything. And then we also squeeze the circle in response to our land acquisition efforts with some of the property owners there.
Did that get all finished? Obviously, it must have. Otherwise,
Well, it's finished in that there are two. I think there's just two remaining, in which we did have to proceed with the condemnation of the property. So we do now own controlling interest in it, which is why we can start. What's being established right now is what's the value that the city would pay for that.
Gotcha.
And it's, we didn't want to do it, but, I know if you combine the two parcels together, the amount of property that we needed were appraised at about $35,000 between the two different parcels and the little bit we needed.
Yeah.
The owners of the properties, when you combine what they wanted, it was $400 and some thousand. That's a huge
big difference. Yeah.
And so we really got to a point where it would have been almost fiscally irresponsible if we had paid what they're wanting, given the, not to say that the appraised value was not all that we're necessarily looking to, but we've got to do it. But say that to say, we actually, knowing at a certain point that we weren't going to acquire property easily, we actually tweaked the design and squeezed the circle a little bit, especially on their end, to need less property to make this work in response to
and still be safe, still work.
Yeah,
obviously.
Still works. It's just probably the biggest thing, and you would never know this unless you were in a drone looking down. But on paper, you can see it is the inner circle is not a perfect circle anymore. Because we squeezed one in, it's almost like a teardrop, So but we required less property specifically from the property owners that we could not come to, agreement on. So we do have it. So we are moving forward.
Is there going to be? Not that, just landscaping, I guess. There's not anything special going on in the center of that circle, or is there?
Well, there's an opportunity to, and so our Arts Council has, in fact, I think they already have come up with some art options to go in the middle of the circle. Now, putting something in there does have some constraints because of the view corridor.
Sure.
So you can't put too... you
have to be
too limiting of a you have to have some site corridor, and so there is some limitations. But yes, I do believe that there is going to be at least at some point an official.
I'm not surprised.
Request from the committee to the city council. Let's put something in the middle.
It almost makes sense. You have an opportunity. Let's fill it. Now, going down Peachtree Corners Circle from there to 141.
Okay.
From what I understand, it's a possibility that Peachtree Corners Festival may actually be moved from Crooked Creek area to. That's an opportunity to be able to put that festival there, is what someone said to me once.
I do believe that when it's all done, our intentions would be to move the festival from its current location to the town center.
Okay.
And then the town center would be able to utilize all, we'd be able to bring all that activity to the town center and the forum.
Right.
And would link up with the town green, so you have stuff on the town green, but Peachtree Corners Circle for that event would potentially be the roadway, that section from 141 to Medlock, closed to vehicular traffic, so that you could bring the vendors up and the car show, and then
the car show.
Even on Da Vinci Court, there's a lot of big parking lots that are there that we could potentially work with the owner there and have some of it, used there. So we got some pretty cool opportunities there.
Any improvements along that way? I know that some of the sidewalk was revamped along the way of the town center part. I mean, any improvements along the median or along that way that may be looked at?
Well, there's no median there.
Well, not the median. I guess the center part. The center part of Peachtree Corners Circle. There's trees and stuff like that there. Along that
in
center.
The center?
Peachtree Corners Circle, going from Medlock, anything.
Well, we got some plans on the outside, but there's not anything in the middle, is there right now? Am I missing that?
across from the little pond and stuff?
Yeah.
There's an up and down. I mean, it's not all the way down.
But it's not in the middle of the roadway. It's immediate. Okay, that's where I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, have I...
No, between the two sides.
Oh, okay.
That's what I call a median, I guess.
We've called it here before the property that was originally owned by Bob Cheeley.
Right. Uh-huh.
Okay, so that property the city's purchased.
Yeah.
And so we have it right now. We haven't decided what we're going to do with it. Uh-huh. There has been talk and there has been some conceptual plans on integrating the town center side of Peachtree Corner Circle with the big detention pond just above it.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
Including walking path and other ways.
There's some thoughts about that.
Yes, there is. So there is some thoughts. We just haven't, we're kind of like right now our focus is finishing the parking deck and getting that thing done. It's close. And then now we've started on the town green. Okay. And so it's going to be a push to try to have it done by the end of March, which is our hope.
Now, some of those stores will open. I understand Firebirds is already interviewing people for the restaurant, and they're looking to maybe soft open sometime in November or December or somewhere.
Yes, there are a number of restaurants that are in that first little... section
building
there before you get to the final kind of roundabout there by the theater.
On the left side of the first roundabout, if you will.
Yes. There are a number of them that are looking, I want to say 3 or 4, looking to open at the end of November.
Really? Okay.
Because they want to get in for the holiday season. So, yes, you will have a few stores open while others are doing their tenant improvements. So it'll probably be spring next year before all the current space is done. And then you got Cinebistro, which I think is slated for summer of next year to be done. Okay. Lazy Dog is probably summer of next year, I believe. Okay. You've got the final corner parcel.
Yes, that's Gwinnett Medical.
No. That's right next to Black Walnut and Chase Bank. No, the corner of 141 and Town Center Drive. Right there at the corner. Right. Yeah. That one has not, the official tenants have not been chosen yet. Fuquay is negotiating with stuff and has talked to us about some things.
Like a standalone? That's a standalone
it
building,
may be a mix of both, actually. Maybe some food and some retail. It hasn't been officially decided yet.
So how many square feet for that parcel?
I believe that final corner is going to be around 4,000, 5,000 square feet.
Okay, that's not really.
No,
that's not really big, actually.
No.
All right. And then the
townhomes, I think, are.
When is that starting?
Slated to start sometime summer of next year.
Really? Okay. And now I know Gwinnett Medical, that parcel we just mentioned, Gwinnett Medical Center.
No, that's Georgia Clinic is the name of that one.
Is it Georgia Clinic?
Georgia Clinic is the one next to Black Walnut.
Okay. I thought it was associated, but it's not associated with Gwinnett. Okay. Is Gwinnett Medical Center opening up a...
They're kicking some tires.
They are?
They are. That may be
where are they? Can you say where they're looking?
No, not really. I mean, they've got a number of locations. So.
All right. So this is Gwinnett Medical Center looking to possibly do a satellite office of theirs, I guess.
Yes. I believe the intent is to find a location in the area that offers space for certain specialties to maybe hold office hours on certain days.
Okay.
And,
so like an urgent care almost, no?
Kind of. I mean, so, this whole model is interesting as it's changing. And, I know a little bit more about this than an average city manager would know, because my wife is a PA and actually spent some years on a hospital board at my last city management job. The city actually owned a hospital.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's all late.
But kind of the model is these hybrids where you create this urgent care type of scenario that does some of the drop-in stuff, but does not do everything, so they're not bound by law like an ER to take everybody.
Right.
So there are certain procedures or certain life-threatening things that they're just like, no, we got to call an ambulance for you.
Okay.
So urgent care concept is popular. It's also much more cost-effective to go there than an ER. Mm-hmm. So these urgent cares have started, and so, they do some of the less, complicated stuff. But then you have the primary care physician facility, and it's pure form. So the urgent care one is all walk-in. Pure urgent care does not take any appointments at all. Okay. Everybody's a walk-in. First come, first serve.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's the urgent care model, pure model.
Right.
Then the primary care pure model, which is everybody that goes has to have an appointment with your particular provider.
Right.
And oftentimes you're assigned to, nurse practitioner, PA, doctor, and you go and you do it, and they either take care of it there, sometimes refer you to experts or whatever. Those are the two pure. The model has gotten to where it's kind of a hybrid, meaning you will have in-house medical providers that go there all the time and have patients, that have been, assigned to them. It's their primary care doctor for a lot of people. And so they take appointments, but they also open themselves up to walk-ins.
Gotcha.
So they want to do both. So they want to get the walk-in.
Right.
Because they want I just woke up this morning and I feel like death warmed over. And I can't call and get an appointment with private care because usually it could be days or even a week or two.
Right.
So you want to be seen right there, but you don't want to go to the ER.
Sure.
And sometimes you don't even want to go to urgent care because those wait times can be long too, depending. And so you go to these hybrids where it's potentially the place where you have your primary care provider, but they'll also take you as a walk-in. That's the model that a lot of them are going to. So,
interesting. That's like Suburban Medical Center.
That's correct.
Great doctor there, Dr. Single, and same thing there.
That's exactly right. So their providers allow patients to be, assigned as their patient. So you can call ahead and get an appointment, and if you do, you get in there quicker at your assigned time.
Right.
But they also take walk-ins. So they have enough staff that they can try to do that. It's a little bit longer of a wait if you're a walk-in, but it's So we've got, I think Gwinnett Medical Center is looking.
So they're kicking tiles.
Yeah, they are in the area. Okay. So there's a few parcels here that they may do something with. So it's
interesting.
Yeah.
We're almost at the end of the hour, so I just want to hit on a couple of things. One is the new hauler, where they're going to be putting out new carts, delivering new carts to everyone's home in December, it sounds like.
Well, if I came here with any one thing that I was going to ask you to bring up, it was the upcoming change. Right. So a couple of things to remember. So, you're referring to our trash collection service.
Correct.
Solid waste. So I want to start, so now as we're getting closer to the January 1 date change, there's a couple of things that we're starting to see from people as it's being socialized. First and foremost, we want to start with the city didn't just one day wake up and say, let's make a change. The contract we had with our current waste hauler, which is Waste Pro, expires at the end of this year regardless.
Right.
So we rebid this. We rebid the thing out, and we got 4 responses. One of the 4 is our current waste hauler. They bid on getting a new contract. Of the 4, Waste Management was the lowest priced. Waste Pro was significantly higher. So there's talk about, well, why did the city go with one that the cost would go up over what? The current Waste Pro rates, by their own admission, are unsustainable over a long. They haven't gone up in 5 years.
Right, so they were looking to.
In fact, they've actually not gone up, and I want to say it's been 11 years because it had been about 5 to 6 years under Gwinnett County.
Right. And
then when we became a city, it actually became less expensive for that 5 years. So they went up. So if they had stayed as our waste hauler, it would have gone up, not only up from what it is now, but up above what Waste Management has done. So that's a lot of people think, we didn't give it to the lowest. No, we gave it to Waste Management for a lot of reasons. They are the world's largest, so they have some resources that others that are smaller just don't have. But they were the most cost-effective one, and all 4 of them were pretty close to each other. I mean, when I say that, I mean some were, like $1.50 or $2 a month more. But you didn't have this outlier. It's not like we're giving it to Waste Management and they're way lower and we're like, there's no way they can keep this.
Right.
It's important to note that when they're all kind of in the same area, that means that that's the market conditions that drove their proposal. So Waste Management got it the cheapest. Common things on the responses. 2, glass recycling were not included in any of. So recycling in general, but glass recycling specifically, has basically become a cost-prohibitive activity for waste haulers to get in because of the amount of resources required to keep that stream pure enough and the high instances of contamination, and then they just are like, well, that one's contaminated, and then you got to throw it in the regular landfill. So because of that, the waste haulers are getting away from it completely as far as it being a part of anything other than its own container.
Okay.
So none of the proposals had glass recycling as part of the single stream recycling. All of them were willing to consider us wanting to do curbside single stream glass. But think about it. That's a third truck going to every address.
Right.
And for just glass. And so, sure, it would have been a lot more per month because that's trucks going in, a lot more trucks.
But they solved that, right? So there's places.
So there's going to be, we're definitely going to have one because we know we can have one because it's Waste Management actually owns a transfer station landfill here in our corporate limits.
Right.
So they're offering up a big drop-off facility there. So for those who want to do it, they're going to be able to take it. We're looking for initially a second site.
Okay.
The problem is sites that could work from a spatial standpoint. It's not buried somewhere. It's not near residential. It's got enough room for this. The owners of those properties are not particularly keen on having big recycling dumpsters there. So we're getting a lot of resistance. And we're in Waste Management, we're offering, in return for a property owner allowing somebody like Waste Management to put their glass recycling, they won't have to pay their own dumpster.
They don't. But you know what? I can see why. Because contamination, like you said before, we're not talking about maybe a dozen bottles. We could be talking about thousands of bottles.
Oh, yeah. It would be a dumpster. There's some concern. We've had some churches around here at big parking lots. And there's just a lot of concern. Well, what happens if some fall and break in our sidewalk? How often is it going to be empty?
Right.
It just... So I only say that to say we may not be able to find a second location in which the private property owner wants to do it. I guess the back of City Hall is a possibility, but remember we occupied, we leased out the second floor. So we have most of our parking is full now as a way to pay it down. So that's important. So that's why curbside recycling is not part of this.
Glass recycling.
Glass recycling. Another point is a change that we didn't necessarily want, but the bulk item pickup.
Right.
And I'm talking about if somebody wants to leave their couch on the curb.
Before we were able to call and get it picked up.
Correct.
No charge, I think.
That's correct. It was part of your... but going forward, that would have changed also with all of them. The reason we went, we had two options. We could have had the new Waste Management rate could have gone up even more than it is, and it would have still been free. But then what you're doing is you're having other people subsidize for the few that use it.
Right.
Or we kept it down and we just said we're going to make it a pay-as-you-throw program. So if you want to leave a couch, you can still have them do it, but you got to call, and they come out. And depending on the amount, it could be anywhere from like $25, I think, or $20
Which
maybe.
Which is still way cheaper than 800 junk or
correct.
Or any of those.
And then of course Waste Management has the Bagster, which is a pretty cool little thing. I mean, it's about as big as this room here, and it has the 2 straps, and you can literally, they will warranty, you can put any weight of anything in there, and then they have a special truck that comes and picks it up.
Now they have smaller ones too. I've seen small ones also.
And so, that's an interesting program. But anyway, that was going to change regardless. And so we could have had it free, but then everyone's would have gone up more.
Sure.
And it was only used by, our numbers were showing like 8% of the people, of the customers were using it. So it's just not. And then the last thing is days of the week. So there will be, well, it's actually 2 more. The city is going to be picked up in 5 different days over the course of a week. Okay. So we had to divide the city up into fifths. So only 1/5 of the city will stay on Monday. Everybody else will either be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
And how will they know
Once
this?
a week still. Oh, all of this is getting ready to be, you're going to get sick and tired of reading about solid waste.
Okay.
And that's because, again, waste haulers, for them to have the trucks to pick it up in one day, well, 2 problems with it. One, we all know, we've been here a long time, Waste Pro, basically I got to the point where they couldn't get the whole city in one day. There were constantly missed areas, and so one day is just really not sustainable as much as we've grown. And the other thing, too, is when you think about the numbers, if you have a fleet big enough to pick up the city in one day, what do you do with them the other 4 days of the week?
Right. You're going to go out to the other cities.
Well, if you don't have it, then we've got to basically, we would have to pay to keep them idled. Right. And so it would have had to have changed.
So these trucks will be just Peachtree Corners trucks?
That's correct.
And these are natural gas trucks?
Brand new compressed natural gas.
Compressed natural gas. So no oil leaks, at least at this point?
They won't have the motor oil. They will have hydraulic fluid still, but these are brand new vehicles. So at a minimum, initially, there shouldn't be. And then 2, waste management. One of the other reasons we did this is waste management maintenance program is really robust.
Okay.
They also are giving us access to their tracking. We will know where every truck is at any point in time and which cart they've lifted. So if somebody calls, the Figliolini family calls and said, they missed my, I put my can out there and they missed it. Right. And I'm like, when did you put it out there? I put it out there at 8 this morning. And I go over and I can pull it up and say, well, they were actually there at 8:20. So you couldn't have, or the other one we get a lot of is, remember, all the commercial accounts are coming under the city too. So we're going to have one waste hauler for the whole city.
But some of them are grandfathered in until the contracts are over, I guess.
Yes. Now, if somebody currently has a contract with a non-waste management hauler, they're allowed to finish that contract out. Right. They could voluntarily go over if the price is right, but ultimately we want it. And so the instances where a commercial waste hauler is out at 5 in the morning tipping dumpsters, in which we get calls and then we don't know. We have 11 of them operating in the city. Yeah. We don't know who it is or whatever. Now we'll not only know who it is, but we'll be able to pull up the GPS and find out who was doing that when. So it's going to be, one source for all this stuff. Yeah. It'll be better once we get through this.
Sure. Smarter city. So everyone's going to get 2 new carts in December. The old carts get picked up also?
Well, they're property of Waste Pro. Right. So they should be picking them up. Where we would they haven't given us exactly. The best way would be literally December 31st is a Monday. Yeah. So that will be their last pickup day. And it's also the last day of their contract. In an ideal world, they pick the trash up, and then the trash truck moves on, and right behind it is another truck that takes the go. I don't know. It could be the next week where they pick it up or whatever. And then waste management, it's about a 14-day cycle for them to drop all the right cans citywide. So they'll be dropping it, I think, December 10th is when they're going to start. So for a little while, there will be 4 cans at everybody's house. But again, we didn't want to necessarily, these kind of things, it's a pain. We've had to spend a lot of time coordinating, but ultimately it'll be better. And ultimately, the current contract expired anyway, so change was inevitable even if we stay with Waste Pro.
And there's nothing wrong with that when things work out well. The other thing, too, is going back to the city council, We're almost at the end of the hour. But there was ordinance change, well, first read, actually, for package sales.
Okay.
Chapter 6.
Is that the one the other night?
Yes. From
the first read.
Correct, the first read.
All right, so we've got two things that we're going to tweak real quick. One is our current ordinance requires agents. If you have an alcohol, like a liquor license,
right,
it requires you to also have a registered agent, because if we can't get in touch with the holder of it, there's an agent that's registered to handle certain things dealing with them. Ours required the agent to be a Gwinnett County resident. We ran into one where they were like, I live just across, but I'm not in Gwinnett County, and my agent's not in Gwinnett County, and so we're just changing it to where it'll be registered agent in Gwinnett County or, or immediate surrounding counties.
Okay.
The other issue on the registered agent is, sometimes the sheriff oftentimes has to serve something, and you've got to have somebody to serve.
Serve it to, sure.
And Gwinnett County Sheriff can't serve something in Fulton County. But we talked to the sheriff, and he said if it's the immediate surrounding counties, we have kind of mutual aid and
intergovernmental agreements.
And so
and stuff.
He said that would be okay. So we're doing that. Okay. And the other one is we have currently a prohibition against somebody who has a pouring license for on-site alcohol sales.
Yeah.
Like, a restaurant in which the owner, you can buy wine there, and they open the bottle and they pour it there, and you can buy it by the glass, but you can't buy an unopened bottle of wine at those locations. So we're changing it to where that person has a pouring license can also sell unopened bottles, because what you're getting into is we had a couple restaurants where you go, you have their wine there, and then somebody's like, I really like that wine. What is it? And you'll tell them, can I buy a bottle here? And right now you can't sell it. So we're allowing them to sell an unopened bottle.
Interesting.
So, or at least that's what council's considering.
Private brand, maybe, or something.
Yeah, some of it, or really unique. Some of the higher-end restaurants, a Noble Finn or whatever, may go out and actually get more unique wine than you generally would find at your your Publix, or maybe even, I don't know, Total Wine probably has a lot of different, but you know what I'm saying. And so somebody could really like it. Nobody's going to do that on a wholesale basis, because they're going to mark it up even more. All of it has to start with a distributor regardless.
Sure.
But if they want to then tack on a little bit more, and for the convenience of buying it right there, and you're willing to pay for it, then so that's what it was.
All right, so we're at the end of the hour. Learned a lot. I love the technology part, the smart city part at the beginning. I think there's a lot of promise there. Tonight, Lynette Howard, who's the county commissioner of this district, is on the show at 8:30. We're going to do a live stream and a live Facebook Live as well. She's running for re-election, so we'll be talking to her tonight at 8:30. If you'd like to come by on Facebook and listen in, that'd be great. If you have any questions, you can post it on the comments. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you coming out.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again.
Yep. Thanks, guys.